out there. The Brewery Underground Podcast is back once again. And today we are going to be talking with Adam Smith of the City Brew Hop. Steve Sullivan here, bringing in, of course, Scott Touron. And Scott, we have some folks with us today, right?
What's up, brother? We have a special host, a third host, if you will, joining us today. His name is Chris Finnan, and if you've listened to previous podcasts, especially the Drunks of the Round Table, he was on it. So, Chris, welcome.
Great to be with you guys. Great to be aboard.
Yes,
pun intended there.
Well, cheers, fellas.
Cheers. And Adam Smith from City Brew Hop. Glad you're here with us too, man.
Absolutely. It's great to be on with you guys. I'm a fan of the podcast. Like I said, I've listened to a few episodes, and I think what you guys are doing for the beer industry in Nashville is exactly what we're trying to do, is connect it, right? And make sure that people are informed and aware of what is actually out there.
Yeah, and it's a great intro because you reached out to us a while back. I think it was one of our articles we put out about, is Nashville a destination beer city, I think is what I wrote. And you had reached out to us and said something about, hey man, why not mention us on it? And it was perfect. It was kind of a perfect fit. Like, why not mention you guys as we're writing these things and talking about breweries around town?
It's funny. I see that all the time. I see these articles from like Garden and Gun magazine or Thrillist or like regional posts or, people that just write blogs, and they're talking about, the breweries in Nashville, and every one of them, and we're mentioned in a ton of them. Don't get me wrong, but I read almost every one of them. And at the end, I'm like, man, they could have just said something about us, because, we're bringing beer tourism to Nashville, and again, trying to connect every brewery by safe transportation, and in a fun way. So read those, and like I said, we've been mentioned in a few, and some we're not mentioned in, and I'm like, man, you were so close to like getting this out there. But that's why we work every day, to try to get our name, our brand, our the idea of bringing all of this together in one industry, in one collaborative industry, and one nobody's competing. That's what I love about it. Everybody's friends, everybody's collaborating on beers, everybody's always, when I go to a tap room, I see other brewers and other brewery tap rooms, and that's really cool to see. So you're right, I jumped on that opportunity and I said, hey, let's talk about the brew hop.
Mm-hmm. And absolutely, and I think from that point, I went back on the stuff I had written and added you guys in talking about those breweries. I said, hey, this is on the Brew Hop. From the ones going forward, I will do that as well. So I think it's for, like you said, it's that connection. So thanks for reaching out. And also, you were mentioned by Mel from Breweries. She had taken the tour once, and she said, you guys have got to do this thing. So just kind of a combination.
That is one episode I have not listened to yet, but I have it in my queue, because meeting her was a whole experience. I mean, you guys, I'm sure, realize that on the podcast, but the first time I ever met with her, I sat down at Smith & Lentz, and I was in awe of just her energy and aura and everything towards that Brewbies Fest that happened back in January. And, we were excited to be a part of it. And it was a really fun event, to be honest with you.
Yeah, a lot of passion. Hey, real quick, before we keep going on, how about cheers to everybody on this podcast?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you guys are drinking, but I am drinking the Atomic Dog hard cider. This is a sweet bourbon, and happy to kick it off.
It's a very good one.
I'm doing a Sweetwater Gone Trippin' West Coast IPA.
Very nice. Adam, what have you got?
All right. Normally this time I would plug this, and I'm going to show you guys this because we're on a Zoom call, but this is our very first beer we ever brewed, City Brew Hop. It's called With a Little Hop from My Friends. We brewed it in collaboration with East Nashville Beer Works and New Heights Brewing. And I have that with me. I have not opened it because we're down to the last keg at New Heights at this point. So I'm kind of savoring some of that stuff. Honestly, working with so many breweries in Nashville, and they're all going to hate me for saying this, especially if they're listening, When I go home, I look for the lowest ABV beer I can find, and because I like to drink beer. Don't be like, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I like to drink beer. I love all of these flavors, all of these things that people are doing. But normally you're going to find me, if I'm not at a brewery in Nashville, at my house drinking a Founders All Day IPA. I consider it the Bud Light of IPAs. You can drink
description.
13 of them
Yep.
and still carry on. And
Still
like
function.
I said, I like to drink beer.
Very, very good. Very good reasoning.
Absolutely.
We gotta love it. So,
The one I've
Adam,
got, well, hang on. I'm
Go ahead,
going to
Pat.
drink some too.
Yeah, Scott's got to tell us what he's drinking.
Yeah, man. I haven't even opened it yet.
Other than
I've
the
got this-
bourbon he was pre-gaming with.
Yeah, that's my little warm-up juice. So I've got this Winchester Pub Ale by Pivot Brewing, courtesy of the Hill Tappers who rolled in this past weekend. So cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
all right. So, Adam, let's start from the very beginning and ask, what is the Music City Brew Hop?
Loaded question. Now, I tend to ramble, so I'm going to try to cut this short and sweet. Music City Brew Hop was an idea that came from the CBC, the Craft Brewers Convention in 2018. Now, it didn't come to fruition until 2021. So we opened in July 2021. Obviously, there's a lot of factors involved there, COVID being a factor, being able to visit people, gather, not wear masks, whatever. But in July 2021, I opened Music City Brew Hop, which is a hop on, hop off brewery tour that is specific to Nashville breweries. Now, I will tell you, there is only 2 companies in the entire country, and we constantly look at this, that operates the way that we do, which normally when you're thinking of a brewery tour, say you go to Charlotte or San Antonio or, Phoenix or wherever, and you're Googling, you're like brewery tour Phoenix, brewery tour Charlotte. What they're going to do is send a white bus to a pickup point. They're going to pick up a group. They're going to take them to 3 different breweries. You're going to do the same flight with the same people at every single brewery you go to, and then 3 hours later, you're going to be done. I wanted to change the game on that. And what I learned was a lot of breweries in Nashville specifically don't want to do tours. They don't want to do tastings. They don't want to do this. And I said, there's still a need for this. So what I did was I created this business model that never stopped running. It is basically a hop on, hop off trolley that operates from noon to 7 every Friday through Sunday, and it never stops running. So think about a city bus for breweries, where every stop is a brewery instead of, some pickup point that you would think of. When we pull up to every stop, we're there for a couple of minutes, and then we pull off. If you ever seen somebody chasing after a city bus, it's because they weren't at the stop on time. It's the same kind of thing that we deal with on a daily basis. So when we drop you off, you have an hour at that brewery, and we're back at a stop time. Say, for example, stop 1 is 5 minutes after the hour. We're back at that stop every hour at 5 minutes after the hour for 7 straight hours. Now, if you really like that brewery, you can stay for a couple of hours, and you can know exactly when the trolley is going to come back around. You can't drink on our trolleys. We are pet and family friendly. So we sell kids tickets. We invite you to bring your pets on board because we mirror the exact business model as breweries, which also invites family and pets. So, if you rent the trolley privately, you can bring as much libations as you want on and have as much fun and play the music as loud as you want. But, when we operate from Friday through Sunday, we're not a party bus. We are a kind of a safe, industry-specific way to get around to some of your favorite places in Nashville. And, that's pretty much it. That's where we wanted to kind of stop. So when I first started this business in 2021, it's so funny when I look back on it now because, we're about to celebrate our 3rd anniversary this weekend. And when I look back on it, I started this business, bought 1 trolley, parked it in my driveway, drove it, washed it every night, did all of the online stuff. And within a couple of months, we're somehow in British Airways magazine. their in-flight magazine for 2 months. They did a special on East Nashville specifically, and they found us and they put us in this magazine and they sent us one and they said, hey, we're expecting like 2 million travelers. And I'm like, do you guys realize what you're like advertising here, right? Like I live in Madison and I parked this trolley in my driveway, and that was 3 years ago. And now it's awesome. Now it's bigger. It's, more successful. We spent a lot of time trying to get the community that and the streets we were driving through and the neighborhoods we were driving through to understand that we're not a party bus. We're just trying to get people who are consuming local Nashville beer around safely. And a fun little way to do it, man. You think like it's not the same old bus transportation. I bought these vintage trolleys out of, Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge and try to keep everything local, and brought them back and branded them and put them on the streets. And now we're having fun with it.
Adam, how long after you started this that you went, man, this is really taking off and this is really working for us?
6 months. So within 6 months, I bought a second trolley because I knew, like, we did our research, and we looked at the market, and we looked at the fact that during COVID, beer and bourbon were just going through the roof during COVID. And I said, man, there's got to be some kind of tour aspect. And the thing is, I had the idea 3 years earlier than that, and just because of some kind of circumstances, I wasn't able to get it off the ground. I'd just taken a new job. I started, working. I moved over from hospitality to tourism. I just had this thing in the back of my mind that was just brewing. I guess it's a pun, but and I was like, this could be something if it took off. And we started pre-selling tickets, and the first weekend we opened was, July, like I think it was 8th through the 10th, 2021. And the very first day I ran, I had 2 people on that trolley. And I was like, I'm defeated, right? And I'm driving it at this point. So, and these 2 people that got on this trolley, all they wanted to do was ride around the whole loop once and then go back downtown. They didn't get off at a single brewery. They didn't know what they were getting into. And then the end of the weekend, maybe Saturday we had 18 people. And then Sunday we had like 12. But the last 2 that got off that weekend was like, it was a couple, and I'll never forget them. And they wanted to take a picture with me, and they wanted to say, we're big beer nerds from Colorado, Denver. And they were like, this is like something that we've been waiting for when we go visit other cities. And I remember being defeated after the first weekend, and then the second weekend comes and there's, 20 more. And then the third weekend comes. And then like by October, we're running, like I'm running like 50 people a day. And it just took off. And so by February, like 7 months later, I bought the second trolley. We created a second loop. The next year bought another trolley. We had a demand for a lot of private rentals, corporate stuff, weddings, things like that. So it was just like, the demand is here. I just need to figure out what lane we're in. Because you guys, I mean, you live here, you understand the party bus scene blew up, the tourism scene blew up. Nashville looks completely different than it did in 2019. It looks like Times Square on Lower Broadway, right? And yeah. I just wanted to do something for us, for locals, for beer nerds, for people who love this industry. And I didn't want it to get out. So we didn't advertise to bachelor and bachelorettes. We didn't, we stayed in this little tiny lane, and we just wanted to do our own thing, and it kind of grew organically.
What were those first breweries that you were signed up for that you did when you were first driving out of your driveway? What were they?
So I created the East route because I was born in East Nashville in 1982, right? And East Nashville is my home. And, even though I live in Madison now, I wanted to support my people and the people who wanted to be in those neighborhoods. And I'll tell you a little story prior to these first breweries that got on board. It's so funny when you approach these businesses and literally cold knocking on doors. And speaking of Grayson with Crazy Gnome, because I know you've done 2 podcasts with him with Crazy Gnome and Cyanide Cider, his new venture. I will never forget the first time I encountered Grayson. I went and knocked on the door on Crazy Gnome. And this, obviously he went through the tornado thing, everything that he went through, COVID, whatever. And I knocked on that door and I said, hey, my name's Adam. I have this idea where I'm going to bring this trolley around. And it's going to bring people to your brewery. And he looked at me like I was selling like branded urinal cakes. And he was like, dude, I'm back here brewing. I don't have time for this. Right. So then I talked to a couple of other breweries, and I'll never forget this. He called me like 2 weeks later, and he was like, "Oh shit, I realize what you're doing now, and we're 100% on board." And didn't ask any questions or anything.
Had to sink in a little bit.
He's like, "Oh wait, you're bringing people here, and you're not asking for anything." That initial loop was a bit, how do you say this, aggressive. Right. So I was going all over the place. I had way too many stops. So it started with Smith and Lentz. And again, you got to think this is a whole hour loop. So started with picking up people at the Omni downtown because I got in a relationship with them. And then you'd go to stop one, Smith and Lentz, Crazy Gnome, Tailgate East, Southern Grist back when they were on Porter Road. We would go up to Living Waters, East Nashville Beer Works, Bearded Iris, and then Barrique Brewing and Blending. And it's evolved since then, but some of those places are places that I want to go to. And if I want to go to it, and I've been in this so long, I want other people to see this, right? You can come here for a Bearded Iris, or you can come here for a Southern Grist, but now you're going to discover Crazy Gnome, and now you're going to discover Barrique. And now even further as it evolves, you're going to discover Fate La Force, and you're going to, like some of these places, Marble Fox is brand new on the scene. It's like these people are doing what I fell in love with about Southern Grist in 2015, or in Tennessee Brew Works in 2013, or, some of these things. Like, I want to put the whole goal of what we're doing is to even further put Nashville on the map for a beer city. We're not a 3+ city. We're not a lower Broadway city, bachelor, bachelorette. We've got that already, right? I want to bring a whole new crop of tourism to Nashville.
Yep.
So Adam, I think it's a great business model, and it's really, frankly, it's a great service that you provide. And do you have a feel for what percentage of your business is out of towners versus locals? Because locals could get, it's a great way to do a day of drinking safely. And again, it's all the places that we all go drink all the time anyway.
Correct. And I do metrics all the time. I'm a metric guy, right? Before I started the East Loop, I drove that route 27 times in different traffic patterns, in different times of the day, on a Friday, on a Sunday, on a Titans game day, on it's just like there's so many things that affect Nashville traffic that I wanted to get it down so my drivers weren't put in a bad position. To answer your question, we started this business, and I swear the first year we were running 65% locals. They were like, oh shit, this is here. Like, we should be doing this. So 65% locals, 35 or so percent tourism. And then it's we've seen that change. And so after the first year, second year, we were running maybe 50-50. And I was like, oh, my wife and I originally built this for locals, right? So we decided, well, if everybody's done this East Loop already and, they've seen these places, even though they go to them all the time, they want to see something new. So we opened the West Loop, and we added breweries like Tennessee Brew Works, New Heights, Fate, Jackalope, Diskin, Tailgate, Music Row. And then eventually, as breweries come on now, Highwire, Marble Fox. And it's like we wanted to provide something that they haven't seen yet. So we kind of controlled that curve. And we went back to 50-50, and now it's kind of switched again. Now, year 3, we're looking at 60 tourism, 65% tourism, 35% locals. And we still have a bunch of fans. Like, I look at the tickets all the time. I see the same names pop up, and it's like, that's really cool that you've ridden with us 10 times. What would have been even cooler is if you got in on our original promotion where we sold 22 lifetime passes for $350.
Wow.
And those lifetime passes come with 4 buddy passes a year where you can bring people. You get your money's worth in the first year. And some of these people are now 3 years in. They get a gift from us every year. We try to do things for, locals. And half of our lifetime pass holders don't even live in Nashville. We had some guy buy it from Baltimore. He says, I come to Nashville for work all the time, and stuff like that. So to answer your question, ultimately, it fluctuates. But right now, since we've decided to go and sell at, 5 different third-party opaque ticket selling sites, tourism is kind of taking over. But that's what we want. We want people to see these breweries. We want a destination for you to come to when you come back to Nashville.
Yeah, because not everybody that comes here wants to go necessarily just downtown. We travel places. Brewery is the first thing on my list. Where do the locals go? What's the places that show me something new? Every
time I go somewhere. I just went to Seattle 2 weeks ago, and I went to 7 breweries in Seattle. And it's just like, but I was talking to a girl named Jessica, who's the marketing director for Southern Grist today, actually. We were just talking about the age group of the people visiting breweries now. Like, I think looking at all of us, we're kind of getting old, and I think this started when we were 25 or 24, and we finally graduated from Bud Light and Coors Light and Miller Light and Busch Light to our first IPA. And now we're 40, and it's like, all right, now this age is sustaining this business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're all older, we have more money to spend, we understand what we're getting into when we go to breweries, we appreciate craft, and the people who make it. And it's funny that 35 to 60 range is our demographic on the Brew Hop.
So you mentioned East and West routes. How many total breweries have you, or do you stop at now between the two?
15. So there's 7 on our East Loop, and there is 8 on our West Loop. And the only reason there's 8 on our West Loop is because one is a dual stop. Highwire and Marble Fox are so close together that we stop on the corner between both of them, and we say, hey, take your pick. One is from Asheville, North Carolina, and they have a big regional name behind them. And one is a local startup brewery in Nashville that, puts very much effort into their craft. And it's up to them to go, pick, right? I look at the difference, and there's so many factors in breweries and that people want, right? There's the beer, right? The quality of beer. There's the quality of food. There's the merchandise. Is there cool merch there? And then the one biggest thing that I feel our riders want, because they're, again, tourists in Nashville, is atmosphere. So, and that brings a lot of weight, right? I think Monday Night Brewing, even though they're not local, they're out of Atlanta, Georgia, they have some of the best atmosphere in Nashville, as far as the history of that building.
Yeah, it's a great space.
Yeah.
That building started as a meat slaughtering plant in the early 1900s. It made bullets in the First World War because it sits on Cumberland River, and you can, take that Cumberland River all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. It was a meat packing plant. It sat abandoned for 50 years. Like, that whole development is awesome. But then going back to Marble Fox and Highwire, you've got, obviously, if you guys know, if you're old beer nerds, that's the old Jackalope Marble Fox is in. But they've made that space really cool and small. Or you can go to Highwire, where it's really loud and a lot of neon colors, and it's like music, and like, people want both of those.
Yep.
They want to see really cool spaces. They want to see really intimate spaces. They want to. It's really cool to see people wanting different things that get on our trolleys. Everything from the kid who's 24 who has no idea what ticket he bought. He's wearing a Coors Light T-shirt going on a brewery tour, to like the old head that has heard Barrique ring out from the masses and wants to go check out how they put that much effort into that craft.
So I'm curious if you know how much of your business has gotten to the point where it's almost just word of mouth because you've gained this reputation.
I feel like between locals, it's great. Man, we go to, this year we had the largest display ever at East Nashville Beer Fest. We put a trolley on site. We built a photo booth in the trolley. We poured our own beer that with a little hop from my friends I was talking about earlier. We do giveaways. We do all, and people come by those booths, and we, have advertised at Winter Warmer or Pred's Beer Fest, or, any of the ones we try to get our name out there. people come by the booth and they'll be like, man, I see this drive around the neighborhood all the time. I've been on this 5 times. Every time I'm in town, or every time I have people coming in town, I, buy tickets to the Brew Hop, and that's how I show off Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's a really cool thing. Like, instead of every time you come to Nashville, you're getting on a pedal tavern or a tractor or a cut-off school bus or whatever the hell they have down there. They're like, we want to do this organic thing and drive through the neighborhoods and, really soak this in because we want to show these people what we enjoy in Nashville. So I think word of mouth has been big. I think local like writers and podcasters and people like yourselves, like just discovering it still makes me happy. Even though we've been on the cover of American Bus Association magazine, or we've been mentioned in Garden and Gun magazine and all this other stuff, it's like, man, I don't care. Anybody that finds this and wants to talk about it, that's really cool because we've worked hard at it. I mean, it's a small business, right?
Yep. Hey, I'm totally guilty of originally lumping you guys in with the party bus scene. Before kind of learning about you, you had reached out to us. Melanie had spoken about you. And then we started researching for you, like, shit, you are not that at all. And I can appreciate that so much. And with the locals, the percentage of locals on there, I think is a testament to what you guys have done to say, hey, man, we're not that.
And we actually started the business model. There was something in like the original writings of this business model that said we will only play local Nashvillians on the speakers in the trolley, because it's not an open air trolley, right? We're factory manufactured, temperature controlled. We have AC in the summer, we have heat in the winter. In the original business model I wrote, only local Nashville musicians will be played. We've kind of evolved from that because, I mean, you get a mixed bag, right? And we're not playing just like country music. Like that's not my style, even though I'm from Nashville. And in the 80s, we only had 7 radio stations and they were all country. And in 1988, I discovered Guns N' Roses for the first time. And I was like, holy shit, there's a world outside of this. So it's like we've evolved a little bit from that, but we try our best to play like a lot of local musicians in our playlists on the trolley because we want to show that off too. Everything we want to do is local, from no paid advertising, I could get into it for days and days, but yes, hopefully.
Here's an important question. Do you have a woo girl policy? And if not, would you add one?
Okay, that's a great question. Because we can't control who buys tickets, right? So you can go online and buy your tickets for your group or however much. We sell out at about 80 to 100 people per day per route. And we've had plenty of bachelorette parties on, which I love because you love craft beer, right? We do a little opening speech and we notice if they all have matching T-shirts.
It's the telltale sign.
Oh, yeah. We tell a little joke that says, you can woo, but please don't woo out the windows. You can woo inside the trolley all you want. We just have a reputation to uphold.
Fair. That's a good compromise, I think.
That's right.
So I'm on the street. I don't have to hear it going by.
Yeah.
You're coming through East Nashville, my neighborhood. I don't need to hear it. So thank you for keeping the windows up.
That's funny.
Oh, that's great. Hey, so on your route and with the number of trolleys you've got, are you guys pretty much at capacity as far as the number of breweries you can run in a day? I mean, there's only so much time in a day, right?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, I ran like that first route 27 times in traffic patterns and all that other stuff. And I did this in my truck and took notes, and there was like a whole notebook full of stuff. And we've done that with 2 different routes. And to keep our drivers on time, and that's very important to me. A couple of things are important to me. Communication is very important, right? So you buy a ticket, you get a confirmation email, you get a automated text the morning of your tour giving you the stop times, additional information on how to board. That text is textable, so to speak. So there's somebody on the other end of that is going to respond to you if you say, hey, I'm late for this, or where's the trolley, or we respond to you, and then you receive an email after that. With that being said, to keep an orderly time for every stop, and based on patterns and everything that's going on in Nashville, the two routes are kind of set right now. Now we're always changing because obviously we've added a Monday night, we've removed a Smith and Lancer, a Living Waters, and it's because of what makes sense to us. Now I'm not saying that they'll never be back on again because we love those breweries, but we've added the High Wire, we've added the Marble Fox. When you add, when you subtract, when breweries open and close, we've gotten so many questions from the nations. You've got a bunch of breweries over there in that whole corridor, even all the way out to Black Abbey. They're like, why aren't we on a loop? And I'm like, kind of a little bit far for us for right now. But we're always evolving and changing, and that is what you have to do kind of in this beer industry. I would love to put a Trolley in the Nations if it made sense. If I could get tourists from downtown to the Nations, run them around all day and get them back downtown. But we only have so many seats on the Trolley. So like getting back and forth, we do a lot of private brewery tours for corporate groups, for, anybody who reaches out, bachelor parties, birthdays, 50th anniversaries. We've done over 200 private tours since we opened 3 years ago, where we encourage people to go to Yazoo. We encourage people to go to Fat Bottom. We encourage people to get outside of this box that we've built in the inner loop, so to speak, and see other things, right? Tailgate Headquarters has great space out there. They have a great, backyard and everything, but it's just what we can fit in. We've expanded. We work with distilleries. We work with culinary, almost every barbecue restaurant in Nashville. We've created these curated experiences that you to Nashville Barrel Company, which is honestly one of my favorite places in Nashville. They make, speaking of whiskey, Scott, you were drinking that earlier, or bourbon as you call it. Nashville Barrel Company is probably my favorite in the state of Tennessee. And the crazy thing is, I used to run a high-end bourbon and whiskey distillery company, a tour company, and that got really successful until COVID hit. And I worked with Jack Daniels, George Dickel, Nelson's Greenbrier, Nashville Craft, Corsair. And when Nashville Barrel came on the scene and found my love of MGP whiskey initially, and I found that mash bill, and I was like, I might never go back.
Yeah.
Those guys have an incredible palate, don't they?
They really do, man.
Yeah. Southern Collective is another one along those lines where they're really good at that.
Love those guys too. We work with them. We take groups there all the time. But yeah, we're constantly like evolving and thinking what else we can do. This isn't just a beer town. It's what I call spirits tourism, and we have wheels to get people there.
So what are your thoughts about we talked about Grayson. He just opened a cidery. Any thoughts to mixing in cider too? I guess Diskin is on your stops, right?
We do have Diskin.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you this: Grayson has some big balls to go up against Diskin with this little cidery, right? I mean, he put Burrito Babe in there, which is one of my favorite food trucks in Nashville. They're doing something that Diskin and probably no other cidery in the country is doing, is you mix your own cider. My wife and I was there, and she was like, "This is the cutest thing ever." You get two big, like, whatever you call those things, like.
There were beakers of some sort.
Beakers.
Yeah.
You get beakers of cider, and then you get a couple of beakers of mixers, and you're like, "This is fun,"
He told us, he said, "You're going to run out of cider before you run out of mixers," and it was absolutely right.
Right.
I think it's a testament. I think it's a testament to them that they have the foresight to realize that there is a big market out there for cider and seltzers, and they're taking that. They're taking that effort.
But that's what we're learning about the brewery industry as a whole. I think is what we get the question of the most is, hey, what else do breweries have? Because I am a wife and I'm accompanying my husband who has, who is a big beer fan, right? Or we're bringing a group of 6 people and 2 of them don't drink beer, or they're allergic to this, or they're that. So what else do they have? And we get those questions all the time. And what I see is every brewery is evolving, right? So we all know this, and it's going to bounce back for sure, but beer is kind of on the decline right now, at least sales, visits of tap rooms, things like that. So breweries are making not cider, they're making seltzers, right? They're bringing in cocktails for hard liquor. They're bringing in wine. The newest thing is hop water, or not, weed water is what I call it. Whatever.
Weed water.
They're all bringing in this weed water because they understand, I guess society is getting healthier and they're trying different things. So it's really cool not to go into a brewery now, and it's not just beer. It's not just somebody sitting off to the side drinking water while all their friends drink beer because they wanted to accompany them, right? Mm-hmm. They have all of these options. They have NA beers. They have mocktails. They have, they want to accompany every single person that walks through those doors. And so do we. So we kind of mirror that. And in the beginning of our tour, if you buy a ticket to Music City Brew Hop and you get on, you're going to get an opening speech. Here's what every brewery does well. Here's what they have. Here's who has food. Here's, who has things other than craft beer. So we want to educate the people when they first step on our trolley and get a wristband from us that says, this is how you can map your day out. Because I understand 7's a lot. Don't go to 7. That's And we always say it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? You're drinking craft beer. It's hot as shit in Nashville right now. It's like, and we provide bottled water for free, and we have for 3 years. I've probably gone through, I'd say almost 100,000 mini bottled waters. I give to everybody for free for 3 years, because it's like we say a marathon, not a sprint. Drink a little mini bottle of water every time you hop on the trolley, right? And that'll carry you through the rest of the day. We've, again, taken over 25,000 people on our trolley publicly. That doesn't include private tours. And we've only had one incident ever where somebody messed up. And
I was going to ask from your horror stories.
So most people, and I send my employees, drivers, everything through social responsibility training. That's how to handle somebody who's becoming too intoxicated. You can notice that. I'm a big proponent of that. So you notice their eyes starting to lower a little bit, their speech starting to be slurred, inhibitions, whatever. And we train on that because the reason I'm so adamant is because it makes us look bad, right? Say, for example, say the trolley pulls up to East Nashville Beer Works and this guy is hammered, and we can tell, or not hammered, but getting there. And most times your spouse, your friend, your group are going to tell you to chill out, right? And they're going to, because they want to continue their day and they don't want you to ruin their day, right? But our drivers are trained, or conductors is what we call them, we're trained to notice those signs and then to be that polite but firm. You saw those, security t-shirts back in the 90s down at, Riverfront Park or whatever. It's like, look, dude, we understand you're getting a little, how about this? How about you let your group go in there. You sit on the trolley. You're going to drink some bottled water with me. What band do you like? Pearl Jam? We'll play Pearl Jam for an hour, and I'll crank it up, and you're just going to ride around with me for an hour and drink this, and we're going to meet back up with your group, and then you're good. Because here's what's going to happen if we don't do that. I'm going to let you off this trolley. They're not going to let you in or serve you at the brewery. You're going to be standing in a parking lot for an hour waiting for me to come back, just mad. And it doesn't look good on anybody, right? So we work with that all the time. That one at a 25,000 incident, I've referred to this earlier, was a kid wearing a Bud Light t-shirt. He got on the trolley and admitted to our driver he was at an all-you-can-drink bottomless mimosa bar breakfast.
Should have kicked him off just for that. Just that. Mimosa, all you can eat, you're out.
Completely agreed. And I'll never forget this day for the rest of my life, because my driver called me and said, this guy's too intoxicated. I called the brewery, told him not to serve him, and insisted on getting off. So he goes in the brewery. They don't serve him. He ends up sitting on a bar stool, falling off, cracking his head open. Ambulance has to come, goes whatever. Here's the best part. I was displaying at my first ever East Nashville Beer Fest, and the owner of that brewery was also there, and we both received that call at the same time. So we met each other like in the middle of the field, like we're walking to each other, right, about this incident. And to now look back on it, it's a laughable thing, but it was just like we were both so concerned over getting sued, even though it was this kid's fault, and because we were both so new at our small businesses. And
Right.
now we look back on it and we're like, that's why we implement social responsibility. That's why we train our bartenders. That's why we do what we do to keep people safe while consuming alcohol in Nashville.
And it worked. Both sides did it. Both of you guys did it, and it worked, and it came out how it was supposed to.
Absolutely.
Are you striving, or can you see this being a 7-day-a-week thing for you guys?
No.
Well,
okay. Let me respond to that with saying we do operate 7 days a week. Publicly, we expand sometimes in the summers to Thursday through Sunday, but there's not enough demand on Mondays, Tuesdays, or Wednesdays to run a trolley all day long. There's a lot of expenses that go into it. You got to think these are old vintage trolleys, right? So maintenance, diesel, gas, insurance. I mean, I guess we can throw insurance out the window. Labor costs. Our detailers that come in overnight, because I take very much pride in my vehicles. I bought them from auctions in Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, and a lot of people don't know this, but if you go to Gatlinburg, these trolleys are free, right? They're like city buses up there. And when a city buys a vehicle, they can only own them for 10 years or 200,000 miles because of insurance and liability purposes. So I go up there at auctions because when I was a kid, my dad was a diesel mechanic, and he always told me a good diesel engine will run for about 1 million miles if you keep it serviced right? So I know that those cities had to keep those serviced, based on their insurance and liability. So I go up there at the auction at 200,000 miles or 10 years, and I buy them, and I bring them back to Nashville. We rip all the wood out of the inside. We put all new wood, all new benches, all new everything in it. We paint them, we brand them, and we put them on the road. So to answer your question, like we invest a lot into this and a lot into the look, and I park them inside, and I've got a warehouse leased, and detailers come in overnight and they clean them and they make sure they're shiny and the rims are good and the tires are wet and whatever it needs to be. But there's not enough demand, especially in the beer industry, to run these 7 days a week. So let me give you an example. This coming Monday, we're running shuttles from the Omni to Laney Wilson's bar because some company found us and they were like, hey, we need to move 300 people. So we're moving 300 people 3 blocks down the road, but they're paying me for it. So I'm going to run that. We run corporate incentive tours all the time. We've run educational tours for Vanderbilt multiple times. So, and they just rent us out, want somebody to drive them to some of the sites in Nashville where their professor gets on and talks about it. So it's really cool, some of the stuff that we have seen over the years. We have 37 weddings booked for the rest of the year. Wow. So, it's like we're in the right place at the right time because I think there's more transportation needed in Nashville. So my goal is to get out there and find out what transportation is needed and plug those holes, those Monday through Thursday holes. Yeah. If we do that well enough, we can keep this thing sustained, this beer thing sustained that we want to do.
Maybe you can run a commuter rail from Murfreesboro and from Dixon and that's beer themed, to and from work each day, and make it a brew hop commuter rail.
Yeah.
There you go.
I would love that. Hey, can we take a timeout?
Well, that concludes part 1 of our interview with Adam Smith from Music City Brew Hop. We hope that left you wanting more. We learned a lot. We hope you did. Stay tuned for part 2 next week. In the meantime, go ride the Music City Brew Hop. Drink a lot of beer at all 15 breweries that they stop at. Cheers.